What is up, heroes? It's Midnight Zero, and welcome to week 6. Yes, week 6 of the NCPL. We are going to be over against Tyren, coach of the Salmon Arm Shuckles. Now, quick little introduction before I get into Tyren's team. Tyren is a newcomer to the league. He wasn't in Season 2, and he's actually, in general, just kind of getting into more intense Counter League format, competitive Pokemon. So, I don't really know a ton about his playstyle. I don't really know much about his past experience, but I do know that he's relatively new to the Counter League format, but he has been surprising everyone. He's been doing really well. He was undefeated for a while. He is tied for first with myself and Manu. Obviously, there's some tiebreakers that can be done that would put Manu ahead of both of us, but regardless, I'm pretty excited to play him. I respect him as a battler. I wouldn't say he's played perfectly, and I wouldn't say he is like the best right now, but he's definitely putting in effort and he's improving quite a bit, and that's something that really earned my sort of respect. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to play him. I'm actually really nervous to play him because I know he's got a decent team and he can use it pretty well. That said, sometimes he doesn't make the right plays, which, you know, could arguably be the right plays if I don't predict accordingly, right? Which is kind of a scary thing to go up against. And yeah, with that, let's get into his team. The first Mon is the Mon that I wanted so badly for my team. Instead of Garchomp, I would have rather had Landorus T. Landorus T is such a good Pokemon. It is so versatile. It can run. I'm surprised he didn't make this a Z move Mon actually, but it's, you know, physically defensive, Intimidate, Rocky Helmet. It can run Scarf offensive. It can run Band. It can run Dual Dance. You know, Fly. Actually, he's not going to be using it because he doesn't have access to Supersonic Sky Strike, but, you know, Edge, Earthquake, Hidden Powers, U-Turn, Rocks, Knockoff, Rock Polish, Swords Dance, Gravity even. This Mon gets so much. It can run Special with Earth Power, Sludge Wave, like, I can't even stress enough how good of a Pokemon this is. Stealth Rocker as well, too. It's so versatile and so scary to go up against. Next up, we've got Gardevoir. It's got Mega Gardevoir. Now, Mega Gardevoir is a really good Pokemon, in my opinion. It hits a really crowded speed tier, which is one of its biggest flaws. But from a special attacking side, it hits so hard. Pixelate boosted Hyper Voices coming off of base 165 special attack stat. They're going to be doing damage. It also gets access to Psychic and Psyshock. It can run Calm Mind sets. It can run Stall Break or Taunt sets. It can run Will-O-Wisp, Shadow Ball, Focus Blast. It gets really good move pool coverage and is a really good Stall Breaker, so I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up bringing it this week. But yeah, it's a scary Mon for sure. Next up, we've got Keldeo. Keldeo is arguably one of the better Pokemon, arguably one of the best Pokemon in the ORAS OU meta. It's fallen quite a bit. That said, it's still really good at what it does. It typically runs Specs or Scarf and clicks Secret Sword and Hydro Pump or Scald. Sometimes you'll run a particular Hidden Power, sometimes you'll run a Calm Mind set. There's some pretty interesting sub-Calm Mind Endeavor sets out there I've seen, but outside of that, not too much. It can run a physical Waterfall Close Combat set, taking advantage of Justified, its ability, meaning when it gets hit by a Dark type attack, its attack gets boosted. But yeah, it also gets access to Icy Wind, which is pretty interesting, but it's got a really good special attack stat. It can just kind of spam really strong stab Scalds. It's kind of what it comes down to. Next up, we've got Kyurem. Now, Kyurem is a monster. It is quite the beast. Look at that bulk, and look at those base 130 attack and special attack, making this thing a great mixed physical attacker. It is typically used, however, for its special attack stat, getting access to Stab, Ice Beams, and Draco's great offensive typing. Gets access to Earth Power, you know, Hidden Power. Obviously, it can run Roost, Sub. It is a really bulky, really powerful Pokemon, and it's got a great offensive typing and everything. I'm very scared of this Pokemon, arguably more so than any other Pokemon on his team. When you look at my team, you see a huge ice weakness, and that's something I fully anticipate him to take advantage of. Typically runs Specs, sometimes Life Orb, sometimes Sub, Roost, Lefties, sometimes Scarf, a lot of times Scarf actually, and it can definitely put in some work. Next up, we've got Metagross. Regular Metagross is still really good. Doesn't need to be Mega to be a good Pokemon. It can run Assault Vest. That's typically the most popular right now. It can also run Banded. It can, you know, coming off a really strong attack stat. Oh, so speed tier. You know, hitting really hard with Stab Meter matches with the chance to get that attack boost too. it's scary. You know, it's got a great defensive typing with already, you know, decent bulk. Throw an Assault Vest on it, and it's got a great move pool, access to Priority and Bullet Punch, you know, Earthquake to its steel types, Hammer Arm, Thunder Punch, Ice Punch, Zen Headbutt, Meteor Mash. Like, it gets a lot. If you don't want to miss, you know, you can always run Iron Head. It's a really cool Pokemon. It's really good. It's really bulky, difficult to take down, and while at the same time being able to dish out a lot of damage. So definitely a threat. Next up is Entei. Now, Entei is a really strong physically attacking set. It typically runs Adamant, Choice Banded, Max Attack. You know, it hits super hard with Sacred Fire. Really strong stab fire type move. Very small chance to miss, and a great chance of getting a burn, which adds on little bits of chip damage. It can get Flare Blitz, Stone Edge, Extreme Speed, and that's really all you see from Entei. Outside of that, you might see, you know, Life Orb, you might see Scarf, but the moveset doesn't change too much outside of that. This mon in general has a pretty decent matchup against my team. I think what Kyurem doesn't cover with its Ice type moves, Entei covers pretty well with its Fire type moves. So I totally anticipate both of those Pokemon to come. Next up is Hitmontop. Admittedly, I'm not a big fan of Hitmontop. I don't think it's that bulky because of its low HP stat. It gets access to Intimidate, which is pretty cool, and it gets access to Rapid Spin, which is also really important. It gets Fake Out, Mach Punch. It, you know, can boost those with Technician if it doesn't want to run, you know, more defensive Intimidate set. It doesn't really get access to Reliable Recovery though, and typically just gets whittled down by status and can't, if it's running defensive, it can't really do much to other bulky mons, and if it's offensive, it doesn't do quite enough to not get killed by other offensive mons. So I'm not too big of a fan of it, but again, it, you know, has its roles, just like almost everything in this game. Next up, we've got Type Null. Now, Type Null is a scary Pokemon. It's got great bulk, so slapping a Violite on it, it's living so many hits. It's got a decent move pool. It gets access to Stab Returns, which can do a lot. It gets access to Swords Dance. You know, between Return and Shadow Claw, you hit almost everything super effectively. Almost everything. It also gets access to Flame Charge if he wants to boost up the speed. I know he likes Flame Charge as a set. I know that Tyren in general doesn't really think in the same sort of mindset that I do when it comes to team building, because I've helped him team build before. And he typically thinks a lot more offensively, whereas I think more, you know, like bulky offense. Like, you guys have seen my battles, my playstyle up until this point. But, so I don't anticipate kind of like a Rest Talk type Null with SD in return, which is arguably what I'm most afraid of. But yeah, I don't really have a lot of ways to like really hardly, I English guys, to hit this type Null really hard. It's bulky, it can live hits, and it can definitely get some good damage off. Next up is Komala. I'm not a big fan of Komala. This is going to be kind of a trend. I like a couple Pokemon from Tyren's lower tiers, and I really like his top tier picks, but kind of there's a lot that falls through the cracks and just I don't think is really, you know, worth it. Komala can be used as a Wish Passer, U-turn, return. It's got, you know, a decent attack stat. It's got so-so bulk, mediocre speed, interesting ability. I don't know, it's kind of outclassed by Type Null, in my opinion. Next up, we've got Electivire. Now, Electivire is one of those lower tier Pokemon that I really like from Tyren's draft. Electivire is, in my opinion, one of the better value drafts, or value Pokemon in the draft format. It's got a really great attack stat, decent special attack stat, and a great move pool to abuse those moves. You can run Physical Set with Wild Charge, you can run a Volt Switch, I don't know if it gets Volt Switch, I think it does. Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, Hidden Power Ice. I think I might even get Grass Knot. Maybe. I actually Hidden Power Grass and some other move. I don't know. It's got a bunch of good moves. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And it can run a mix set. It's a decent speed tier. It's an electric immunity because of Motor Drive, meaning you can give it a free speed boost potentially, making it that much scarier. And yeah, I kind of got to scout to see if it's physical or not before I want to try and do anything with it. I fully anticipate Electivire too, given that it helps out so much with Thundurus and Suicune in particular. Next up, we've got Shuckle. Now, Shuckle is very, like, one-track Pokemon. It sets up webs and rocks and then maybe, you know, Infestation to trap something and get up some passive damage, maybe Toxic, maybe Encore to prevent setup sweepers on it, but like that's really it. It's got massive defense and SPDF, but such crappy HP, attack, and special attack. It's not a threat in the slightest. It gets absolutely bodied by Taunt. I'm not too big a fan of Shuckle. It works best with hyper offense teams, which he very well could bring. But I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it. Next up is Rabombi. Now, Rabombi is probably a good lower tier pick in my opinion from a value standpoint. It is very fragile. It cannot take very many hits. It's weak to rocks, but it hits decently hard if you slap a life orb on it, get a quiver dance up. You know, hitting pretty hard with Moonblast and Bug Buzz. But outside of that, it's not really doing too much in my opinion, and it doesn't hit that hard to be like too wary of a threat. Next up is Toucannon. Now, Toucannon is Tyren Zmon, and the reason he chose Toucannon as his Zmon is mostly because of Z Tailwind. I admittedly disagree with this decision quite a bit because Z Tailwind, if you don't know what it does, it basically gives you a focus energy, increasing your critical hit chance. And Toucannon gets access to some skill link moves like Rock Blast, meaning you have kind of like a chances to critical hit or get flinches and stuff. I'm not too big a fan. I just rather run like a more consistent damaging item like Life Orb rather than having to go for something like Z Tailwind. But this mon in general typically runs something like Brave Bird, Rock Blast, maybe even Beak Blast, I think. The move where it like charges its attack, and if you hit it in between, you get burnt. I can see that coming into play with my Scizor potentially on a priority move, but yeah, Toucannon I don't think is too great. It definitely poses a threat to some of my lower tier Pokemon, and especially Tangrowth. And I know he likes it. So I wouldn't be surprised if he brought this as well. Next up is Jumpluff, and actually lastly is Jumpluff. The scariest thing about this is Sleep Powder. It's got such a bad attack stat. It gets access to Swords Dance, but like even if you let it get a Swords Dance or two off after it Sleep Powders you, like it's not going to do a lot of damage to anything really. Any Steel type pretty much like walls this. Yeah, that's kind of it. It typically runs Seed Bomb, Acrobatics, Citrus Berry, or some other boosting item, maybe an attack boosting berry if it gets low enough. It's weak to rocks, but it doesn't really hit hard. The scariest thing is Sleep Powder, which is 75% accurate, so I don't know if he wants to rely on that. But now let's get into my team. The first mon that I saw that did so well against the team was actually Bronzong. I wasn't sure on what set I wanted to run though, because looking at all of his physical attackers, Bronzong just takes it on super well. The only thing that really scares it is Entei and potentially Knockoff from Offensive Lander's T. But I built the rest of the team, and then I kind of came back to this and decided that I wanted more special help. I wanted this to be able to help take on some hits from Mega Gardevoir. Definitely a great switch into Kyurem, which is a huge threat to my team. And it really just helps out with almost all of his other special attackers, whether it's Rabombi or or maybe even Keldeo to an extent. It takes like 63% from a Specs Scald from max special attack Timid Keldeo. And it doesn't really need a lot of defense investment to even help out with the physical attackers. I think Adamant max attack Brave Bird from Life Orb Toucannon does 40% max to Bronzong, and that's just with 24 defense investment. And that 24 defense investment is so that I live a non-damage boosted Sacred Fire 100% of the time from full from Entei if it's max attack Adamant. If it's like Scarf Adamant, as long as it's not a damage boosting item, I live a Sacred Fire from full, which might be necessary to get an Earthquake off. Gyro Ball hits things really hard. It hits Kyurem really hard. It hits Gardevoir super hard. It even hits Lando T decently. And what it doesn't hit, or it also really hits Rabombi. That's also relevant. But Earthquake is there primarily for Electivire. It's also there for Entei. It's also there for Metagross. And I was thinking about running Toxic instead of Psychic, but anything that I really would Toxic, I would just much rather Psychic to get like 40 or 50% damage off rather than like slowly building Psychic or Toxic damage. And especially given he has Metagross, that's like a great switch into Bronzong, probably. Rocks is, really helpful against any team. And Bronzong, I anticipate getting, a decent amount of forcing a decent amount of switches on something like a Draco, an Ice Beam from, Specs Curum, which is going to do like 35, 40. I think a Specs modest Draco Meteor does like 40 something percent, like low 40s percentage to this Bronzong. So yeah, this Bronzong is pretty helpful, and again, it helps out with the physical attackers too, and that's a theme you're going to see here. I have like a couple strong attackers, and I got a lot of bulk that is directed in one particular side, physical or special, but can act as both. And what's going to be really important is that I designate what Mon I'm going to be using for which offensive threats he brings. And something else I mentioned is I have absolutely zero speed reducing nature, and zero speed IVs to power up my gyro ball as much, which is something I've been forgetting to do up until this point. But enough said, let's move on to the next Pokemon. The next Pokemon is Suicune. We've got a typical Crocoon here. There isn't really much more to say about it. Why did I decide to bring Crocoon? After a Calm Mind, it takes on all of his special attackers, except for maybe Electivire. Not even Jumpluff really breaks through this thing that well. Curum, can drop Dracos, and then we just set up on it more. Gardevoir can potentially beat us 1v1 with Calm Minds and Psyshocks, but we do decent amount of damage to that back. This helps out with offensive pressure from Landorus T. It also helps out with pressure from Metagross, which, Adamant max attack, like AV Metagross, like Meteor Mash does like, I think 25% or so max. This also can set up on a lot on his team, whether it's Shuckle or Komala or Type Null or Hitmontop. This also is a premier switch into Entei. I think Banded Sacred Fire does like 30% or something like that. So yeah, legendary dogs countering each other, but that's what it's pretty much here to do. It can also help with Keldeo. It's very mixed, right? It can get off some good damage, it can get off some burns, it can set up on a lot of things, it can act as a defensive pivot, it can also take some special hits, and especially after one Calm Mind, there isn't a lot that he can do about it. Yeah, it's also a sleep fodder if he does bring Jumpluff and wants to go for that sleep powder. Next up, we've got Scizor. We got a Mega Scizor, and we're running a bulky Mega Scizor yet again. This is probably my favorite Scizor set. I'm gonna be completely honest. This is probably my favorite Mega Scizor set. BP, U-turn, SD, and Roost with a decent amount of bulk. Take hits, force things to switch, get chip damage, get momentum, and then when everything is weakened, because of all the playing around, all the hazards, all the momentum you've been getting, you finally find one turn SD and sweep. It's got plenty of HP, and I'm actually going to pull up my notes right now because I put a lot of thought into this Mega Scizor set because I wanted to be able to use this for physical and special threats. Now, okay, so here we go. The 248 HP and 124 defense EVs mean that I take 49.8% max from an Earth Plate Adamant Landorus T, and that I live a +2 Flame Charge Adamant +2 Flame Charge, max attack, type Null, after coming in on rocks. So those are the only really relevant things, and based on the rest of based on the SpDef, which I'll get into in just a second, I had some leftover EVs. The 4 extra defensive EVs actually make a difference if he brings defensive Lando T. Saves me like 1% damage on the max end of the roll, whereas it doesn't change anything else. So that's like the only really relevant. That's why I added that extra 4 EVs. With regards to the SpDef EVs, so having 64 special defense EVs allows me to live 2 timid Mega Gardevoir Focus Blast from full, which is pretty cool. 76 SpDef EVs allows me to live an HP Fire from timid Mega Gardevoir from full. 84 SpDef EVs allows me to live timid Specs Keldeo's Hydro Pump after rocks. It allows me to live 2 Scarf timid Scalds after rocks, even if he burns me on one of those Scalds. And I live 2 modest Specs Secret Swords from full. And I have a good chance to live modest Scarf HP Fire after rocks. So definitely, like, if I need to get chip on Keldeo or something like that, if he wants to stay with Keldeo, if he has HP Fire, I can do that. Like, I can potentially live those from full. And that's why you're going to see me prioritizing keeping Scizor healthy throughout this match. 88 SpDef allows me to take less than 50% from Specs Timid Curum's Draco Meteor. So I can set up on that, I can roost up on that. 108 special defense allows me to take less than half from modest Specs Curum's Earth Power if he doesn't want to lock himself into Draco Meter if he wants to go for Earth Power to try and take me on. Again, I take less than half from that. I can roost off. If he wants to try and fish for a Spadef drop, I could even stall him out of Earth Powers potentially by going back and forth between Suicune and this Mon and stuff. And then I also live Timid +1 HP Fire from Ribombee with this Mega Scizor. I don't think that's the case with Life Orb, but I also do a ton of damage back. I think I KO with Bullet Punch after Rocks. So the rest of the Spadef is there to help out and just pad the rest of those calcs. And yeah, that's why I have this Mega Scizor. I put a lot of thought in this Mega Scizor. I think it's going to play a really important role. It does 91% minimum to Gardevoir. It 2-hit KOs Kyurem, unless he's got like 40-something HP EVs invested, which I don't think will be the case, but who knows. Yeah, really important Mega Scizor. Next up, we've got Garchomp. Now, Garchomp, we are rocking some offense here. We have an Expert Belt. It's probably difficult to see because of Garchomp and the colors and everything, but we got Expert Belt Garchomp running Earthquake, Dragon Claw, Rock Slide, and Hidden Power Ice. If you ask me why, the Earthquake hits a lot of things really hard. Metagross, it hits anything, even, neutral hits. It just is really hard hitting coming from this. It hits Entei really hard, it hits Electivire really hard, which are probably, those are the most important. Outside of that, Dragon Claw hits a lot of things neutrally as well, like Lando T. It hits Kyurem super hard, it hits Hitmontop, it hits, Type Null, Komala, a lot of things, again, like I said, pretty hard. And Rock Slide. Rock Slide is there primarily for Toucannon, Jumpluff, and Ribombee. If he wants to try and get Greedy and Quiver Dance up on my Garchomp, I can prevent him from doing that. It also hits Lando T, potentially easing Prediction. And lastly is Hidden Power Ice. Hidden Power Ice is there specifically for Lando T. It does like 66 to 75% to an offensive Lando T. I'm not going to try and reveal it right away. I'm going to let him think that Lando T is a good switch into my Garchomp, which it normally is. I'm going to try and get, Dragon Claw damage on it, maybe some Rocks damage on it for a little bit to see if it's defensive or offensive and use that to figure out when I can actually kill it with HP Ice. And then eventually, pull the trigger, get that HP Ice off and KO it. Now, you might be wondering why I'm running Expert Belt when I don't really have a lot that I can really anticipate hitting super effectively. Like, if I have Metagross in, right? If he has Metagross in against my Garchomp, if he has Entei in against my Garchomp, he's probably going to switch, right? Well, he might stay into Extreme Speed, potentially, but I don't anticipate getting a lot of super effective hits unless it's something like Ribombee or maybe even Jumpluff or Toucannon. In general, though, I didn't want to take Life Orb damage because with Rock Switches, with potential Fake Outs and Mach Punch from Hitmontop and with potential Extreme Speed from Entei, I don't want me attacking to put me in range of other Mon's priorities. So I ended up going with Expert Belt, even though I don't think it'll aid in too much outside of Rock Slide and hopefully that Hidden Power Ice, which I want to do a lot of damage. So that's the mentality there. Next up is Thundurus. We got Thundurus T. I really was considering running a Scarf Thundurus T, but I was also like, okay, that doesn't really work super well because of the typing of a lot of the Mons on his team. But I can always run Scarf Garchomp. But actually, between the two of them, I don't really want to be choice locked with either one of them. And I ended up going with just the leftovers Thundurus T, knowing that I can potentially take some Scarf hits from Keldeo, I can potentially take an Extreme Speed from Bandit Entei, if after Rocks I get a little bit of leftovers recovery. Thunderbolts and Flash Cannon hit just about everything really hard, and 2-hit KO pretty much just about everything. Hidden Power Ice is specifically there for Landorus T if he wants to try and get cheeky. Taunt is there for Shuckle and anything else that might want to set up, but like it's really just mostly there for Shuckle. Again, Flash Cannon is there for Ribombee and Kyurem, and I don't really want to use this as like a late game sweeper more say, but more so of a in the middle of the game, like I'll switch into this and try and force him to switch and then get good shift damage on whatever wants to come in with some powerful Thunderbolts, some powerful Flash Cannons, and then I can switch out into one of my bulky Mons. And actually, I'll get into the speed problem later, but the speed is just outspeed the base 100s. The only thing he has faster than base 100 is Keldeo, so that kind of eased a lot of my speed tiering problems. And yeah, that's kind of all there is to say about it. Next up is Tangrowth. we're running Assault Vest Tangrowth. This Tangrowth here is pretty much to help out with Keldeo a lot. I was pretty weak to Keldeo, and this takes 50% max from Specs Keldeo's Secret Sword, and it makes him a little bit more wary to go for water-type moves, and I don't have to risk, what's it called, Suicune potentially. Giga Drain, you know, is there to hit a lot of things, to get a little bit of recovery, knockoff, to get rid of items. You know, a lot of the things that do threaten my bulkier mons are like Life Orb and Bands and Specs, you know, some really damage boosting items. And once those are gone, my walls just kind of, I don't know, they can run wild. Earthquake is there for Electivire. It's also there for Entei if he wants to try and get cheeky and go into Entei on me. Sludge Bomb is there for Gardevoir and potentially Ribombee. Yeah, that's kind of all there is to it. It's a support Tangrowth. It, you know, takes hits from, what's it called, Landorus T super well, and it takes some special hits really well. And it can take some pressure off of my other special, especially defensive mons. You know, switching out for Regenerator is always great. And support with knockoff. Now, threats to this team. I'm really scared of Kyurem still. I'm really scared of Entei and Electivire. Electivire is really scary for my team to deal with. I don't have any hazard removal, which is scary given that he has Shuckle, but outside of that, he doesn't really have much hazard removal. And that's why if he does bring Shuckle, I really need to lead off with Thunderous T to taunt that thing. What else? Speed control. I don't really have anything that fast. I don't have any Scarfers, I don't have any Tailwind, I don't have any agility. I'm very slow, and how I kind of justify that is if he does bring a Scarf Mon, it won't have the damage boosting item, and it'll be choice locked to the point where I do have a wall that can reliably deal with it. So I don't really need to outspeed things. I just need to get chip damage with my bulkier mons, you know, force switches, let hazard damage build, and if I do get the chance to get something like Garchomp or Thunderous T in, I can use that opportunity to get a relatively heavier hit off, or force him to sack a mon or something like that, and then go back in my walls. And so I don't really think I need to worry about outspeeding a lot of his team this week. Again, like I said, it's a scary team. It's a scary team, and, you know, I'm nervous. I think in this format, any week, anyone can win. And I'm going to try and play my best to keep our winning record so far going. We lost the first one, we've been winning since, and I'm going to try and keep that going the best I can. But that's all I got for now. Sorry, this is a bit of a long team builder, but I hope you guys are excited for the match. I hope you guys, you know, turn up for that tomorrow. But I'll see you guys in that battle. But until then, this has been Midnight Zero, and this mission is complete.